Good morning, class. Let's go ahead and get started on our bell work. On a sheet of paper, let's list 4 trees from Pennsylvania, 2 coniferous and 2 deciduous, and list one identifying characteristic of that tree. Your signal to me that you've completed the bell work is whenever you place your pen or pencil down. Or in Tyler's case, a crayon. It looks like everyone's done. So, does someone want to share one of the trees that they mentioned and one of their identifying characteristics? Bob or Tyler?
I have red pine.
And a red pine. What would be an identifying characteristic of the so-called red pine there, Mr. Creeds?
Its bark is kind of like tinted red.
Okay.
And it's got needles.
And it has needles. Okay.
Red cedar.
What was that, Tyler or Mike?
I said maybe he means a red cedar.
Red cedar? Do you mean a red cedar?
I guess so. I'm not too hip on my forestry.
Well, we'll come back to that a little bit here throughout the course of this unit. So, earlier throughout this class, we had the opportunity to discuss trees in Pennsylvania. We did a little bit of dendrology. Gene, what's dendrology?
Study of trees.
Study of trees and their characteristics. So, what we're going to be working on and moving in here today is a little bit of something called silviculture. Has anyone ever heard the term silviculture before? Gene, what is silviculture?
You just asked if I've heard about it. I don't actually know what it is.
You don't actually know what it is, but you've heard the term before.
Yes.
So, silviculture, if we break the word silviculture down, it has 2 parts. Does anyone have an idea what silva means? We're in a forestry class, so what might silvi mean? Mike, any ideas?
Trees.
Trees. Trees or forest. And culture. If something is not necessarily culture, but if we culture something, Val, what does it mean? You're very strong in animal science, so if you culture something on a plate, what are you trying to do? Second Gene.
Figure out like growth of bacteria.
You're trying to get something to grow. So culture means growth. So whenever we talk about silviculture, we're talking about forests and how forests grow and what we need to do to maintain proper growth. So luckily for us, Mr. Snook, who recently purchased the farm, does everyone remember the farm that was for sale on Shortledge Road? He called in yesterday and wanted to talk to us about what he needs to do because this farm that he just purchased is 130 acres. About 100 acres of that is tillable ground and has the poultry farms, which is pretty common in our area. However, that 30 acres of ground, he's uncertain of what to do with the ground that he has. Tyler, can you please put your phone away? Thank you. He's uncertain of how to manage these forests. So luckily for us, as we start this unit, what we're going to do is we're going to help to provide some recommendations for him. So, what are some topics and things that might need to be addressed, Mike, that we may need to think about and learn about to provide him a recommendation to properly manage his wood plot?
Maybe to find what trees are on the plot.
So what trees are on the plot? It helps if I can spell correctly. Now, what about those trees might we need to know?
What species they are.
What species? So, what species? What else, Jean, else do we need to
I've
know?
heard if you write your letters really close together, it means you're nervous. Do we intimidate you?
No, you don't intimidate me. I'm just not very good at writing on a board, okay? That's not one of my good teacher skills. Tyler, what's another characteristic that we need to know about the wood plot of Mr. Snooks to help provide a recommendation on how to properly manage this wood plot?
Slope.
The slope, so slope of the ground. Val, what's another characteristic that we might need?
Wildlife around it?
Wildlife around it. So wildlife around it that we might need.
Interceptor.
And why would knowing the wildlife in the wood plot be beneficial to this process?
Because you don't want to get rid of the forest if there's a bunch of wildlife living in it.
Exactly. And why would a forest be beneficial to wildlife?
Shelter.
Shelter. It provides their living habitat. So we need to understand what lives there so we can provide them the proper living habitat. Good. What's a couple other characteristics that we would need to know? Mike, you mentioned that we need to understand the species there, but what else might we need to know about the trees that are in the plot?
How old they are?
How old they are, so their age? If we have a lot of really young trees, Tyler, what might that mean about our wood plot? If all the trees are like really young, really small,
That it's young.
that it's young. So if there's no old valuable trees, what might we do to a wood plot to make some money off of it? What was that, Val?
Timber?
Way to go. Thanks for helping Tyler out on that. So how long ago has it been logged? Val, you're kind of on a roll here. What are some other things that we might need to know about this wood plot?
How dense it is?
How dense it is. Good. Awesome answer. Any other thoughts? Characteristics that we may need to know. What about, if you guys have an animal and you're selling it for meat purposes, but it's sick, can you sell it?
No.
No. Why can't you?
So you get people sick.
Yeah, there's a lot of risks that go along with that. So what about our forests? Should we be concerned about the health and quality? Are there pathogens in the forest?
Yeah.
Is that something we should be looking at?
What's that thing called? It's like the don't use firewood.
It's a beetle.
Beetle.
What's that,
There's
Jean?
some catchy slogan with the firewood.
Don't use firewood, it bugs me.
What's that?
Don't use firewood, it bugs me.
Don't move firewood, it bugs me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is that slogan all about?
Some sort of ash beetle, I think? Or a beetle that,
Ash borer.
Bamboo
Yeah.
ash borer? Yeah, and we'll actually get a chance to talk about that later on throughout the course of this unit. So what we're going to do now is within your table partners, we're going to grab a sheet of paper from the back of the room, and I would like Jean and Mike to look at what type of trees are on the plot. So looking at the species that are involved, the age of those trees, and the density of those trees. Further investigating why this is important to overall growth. Remember, we do have our laptops, we're going to be able to use those. And I would like Val and Tyler to look at logging. So how does logging impact the growth of a forest? What we're going to do is we're going to further investigate this throughout the course of this lesson. And whenever we go and we learn about this later on in the unit, you guys are going to start the class off by reporting out your findings. Okay. What questions are there about this activity?
What do we have? Do we have to turn in anything?
We were just on a blank sheet of paper, we were just gonna jot down some notes. So how is the species, or the trees, so the species, the age of the trees, the density of the trees, how is that going to impact growth and productivity of this wood plot?
Is there a timeline on that?
I just want you guys, we're gonna keep working throughout the rest of the class period. What other questions are there on this activity? None? Okay, let's go.